Yo, what's going on, everybody? This is Abdullah Konte once again with another episode of Win Sports, and today I'm talking about kind of a reaction to the press conferences that we heard yesterday from Durante Jones and David Blau, and a lot of people had listened to and watched, our video that me and Skylar did based upon the reaction of what they had to say. But I kind of wanted to do a little bit more of a deep dive in regards to, some of the players that were mentioned, or, the players I feel like have probably the most to impact or, to contribute to the new changes, right? Like, I think that's one thing about any time there's a change within any organization, is that some people are going to benefit and some people are going to not benefit so much. You're going to have people who have to find places elsewhere to go. And I think this one is more focused on, the people who are going to have more positive, outcomes from this change, from the changes that happened overall. There's a few players that I think, obviously we saw some guys regress a little bit from, 2024 to 2025. There was some confusion on some players and what was going on with their trajectory last year. And, I think it's important to reevaluate why they brought these guys in. I think there was obviously a conversation about, is the coaches getting the most out of these players? And I think that was maybe one of the things that it seemed that AP maybe struggled with when it came to Cliff and maybe Joe Witt as well, as that he drafted a lot of these guys, and I think that there are certain people that maybe we even saw some progress in year one, not so much in year two, some people that we just haven't seen at all. So I kind of wanted to talk about the guys that maybe will basically have the most impact in regards to these new changes. Now, on offense, obviously I could easily talk about Jaden. He's obviously going to have, he has a big relationship with David Blau. I also almost put Terry on this list because there was a clip of David Blau talking about, feeding Terry the ball a lot more, getting him 10 targets a game, stuff like that. But those are a little just too easy. I think one that is a big one is Ben Sinnott, right? Ben Sinnott, has not really progressed at all. He was a second round pick, and we haven't seen him really produce much at all. And I think the big reason why is that it was clear that Cliff was tied with Zach Ertz from the beginning. I mean, that was one of the first signings they had when they first brought Cliff in. And I think Sinnott's going to be somebody who might have a much increased role, especially now that they're going to be doing a lot more plays under center, a lot more play action. You definitely want some tight ends to be able to catch based upon those play action passes. I still think that they're probably going to add another tight end in free agency, but at the same time, they still want production from Sinnott. I mean, a lot of teams have two tight ends that are succeeding, so whether they sign somebody or not, I do think this is an opportunity for him to really shine and show what he's about, kind of get a clean slate. Because if there was a little bit of a disconnect with him and Cliff, this is his opportunity to start up fresh with someone new. My second guy is Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, which, we saw that David Blau had mentioned him specifically in his press conference. And the big thing that I thought was interesting is that he mentioned him as a starting running back. I think there is a little bit of a a conversation about, is Bill a number one or not? I think he has all the tools to be at number one. I think it is turning into more of a two-back league. So I think everybody still believes that they're going to add. I mean, they have to. They don't have any other running backs really on the roster. They could bring Rodriguez back. They could bring McNichols back. I don't think they'll bring back Eckler, mainly just because he's kind of in the same boat as Ertz, where he, had a significant injury when he's up there in age that it might be time to move to a different direction. But yeah, I mean, if the way he was talking about him, you could tell that like he feels confident in him as, a number one. I think they still would like to bring somebody else in. And obviously Blau doesn't have control on who is going to get brought in. That's obviously AP's role. But I think he feels strongly about him. And there was this weird, situation last year where we just weren't seeing Bill enough. He started off as, a hot commodity, and then throughout the middle of the season, we didn't hear much of him. And then they kind of ramped him back up at the end. And I mean, look, he almost had 1,000 yards, I think if they would have played him consistently throughout the year, he could have hit that, so maybe in this new offense, they think he could be more of, a 3-down back. I'm not sure if he could be a 3-down back. I think they'd still need to bring somebody else in as well. But at the same time, if he works on catching the ball this offseason, he'd have a really big, trajectory in year 2 for him. And the last guy on offense I want to talk about was Brandon Coleman. Brandon Coleman had such a weird season last year. We had I think it was like a month stretch of him just being healthy scratched, and we just never understood why. I don't think we ever got like a real answer. And knowing Brandon Coleman, he's not he's not somebody who looks like he gets in trouble like outside the field, so I don't know what was going on with that. But he was the guy who started every game. I'm pretty sure he started every game in year 1. He was a good tackle. They moved him to guard. If you can get, a lot out of him, they have obviously decisions to make with Allegretti, Wiley, and Chris Paul. Is Brandon Coleman the guy, or are they going to let him loose, right? So this is one of those ones where, the new regime, it should help him because he has a new offensive coordinator, has a new offensive line coach. But if they don't believe in him, you could see him elsewhere before the season starts. I mean, he could be a trade candidate if they really don't believe in him. But I think that, he seems like somebody who could really benefit from new coaches being in, getting kind of like a fresh start. And he was a really productive player. I mean, I think everybody who, when Connerly was drafted, I think we were all excited about him moving to guard because he played guard and tackle in college at TCU, and mostly guard. And so, if you solidify those 2 tackle spots and moved him to guard, I mean, I thought and obviously having Cosme, Biotic, it was a solidified line. He's a strong asset, but if this is not going to work for him, even with these new coaches, then he might need to be somebody that he can consider, trading elsewhere. But I do think he might be the person that benefits the most out of this list so far. So let's go to the defensive side of the ball. Durante Jones did talk about a lot of people. The 2 guys that I guess would be honorable mention type people that I'm not going to mention are Deron Payne and Bobby Wagner. I thought it was interesting that he didn't really talk about either of them. I mean, he did mention Bobby, or at least talk about veteran players when I think Ben Standard had asked him directly. But we don't know. Is Bobby retiring? We don't know. Deron Payne, obviously there is discussions about, is he a cut candidate because of his cap number? The rumors are is that they do want to keep him around. I think they have enough cap space that they could keep him around, but it is a discussion to be had. But it was interesting that he didn't mention those 2 guys as well as Von Miller. But he did mention some other people that I think are going to really benefit. To me, he's talked about Mikey a lot. Mikey Sanders still is the first person on this list. He talked about Mikey a lot. He mentioned Mikey 2 times, I think, in the press conference, and then I also watched his one-on-one with Brian Colbert, for the Commanders, and he essentially, was talking about Mikey and his kids. It's clear that they have had a conversation, have talked already. There seems to be a bond there. It seems like the one thing I loved about Jones was that he has studied this team already. He's very locked in already. For a guy who just, showed up a couple weeks ago, he knows a lot about these guys. So, I think Mikey, basically, him having the versatility that I think every coach would want. is a huge part of this. I think people who watch Mikey play know that, like, I think one of the things is finding exactly where Mikey needs to be, but he's also somebody who is versatile and can play different spots. And I think, as a coach who is used to working with the secondary, he seems very excited to be working with Mikey, right? So I think Mikey could really, really, really benefit from this. He's probably the number one person that's going to benefit from this situation thoroughly. Then the second guy that I have on this list is Johnny Newton. They obviously have a new D-line coach who'd worked with Aaron Donald before, who's worked and won the Super Bowl before. Johnny Newton is, the guy is insanely talented. He was a defensive player of the year in the Big Ten his last year in college. He was projected to be a first rounder, and with the knee injuries he had, he got pushed down to the second. They really believed that they got a steal with him. And I think that he's one of these guys that we're still waiting to see him, take that leap, right? And we saw some flashes at the end of the year. The end of the year last year, he played much, much better. And so maybe these new coaches can bring more out of him. I mean, the way people talk about these two coaches coming in, kind of leaders of men, you know what I mean? You've heard both, Aaron Donald rave, and basically all these guys who have been coaching with these two coaches specifically, they've been so excited about their chances to advance their careers here. And I think Newton is somebody who can really, really benefit from that. They're going to need it. I mean, I don't know what their decision is going to be with Payne, but regardless, Newton should be the guy of the future on the D line, especially in that D tackle spot. So we know that Kinlaw is going to be here. But Newton really, if he can advance, this team can, he's a piece that if he plays well, this defense can change significantly, right? So, and then the last guy on defense is Jordan McGee. And, I could also put Luvu here, but I think Luvu would have been another easy answer. I think everybody who covers this team knows that Luvu is going to be really, really affected, and Luvu is going to be a guy that is going to benefit. They watched a lot of film on Luvu being able to blitz from any side. He's very aggressive, but I would also put, and it might be just both of them. Jordan McGee is another one that he seemed to really get excited about. He mentioned Jordan McGee multiple times, so it seems like he's also excited about him. Jordan McGee's lateral speed, when it comes to covering run plays, is actually incredible. He's so fast, man. And I think that the thing that I get from what Durante Jones wants to do is that he wants to be fast and aggressive, and he wants versatile players that can do a lot of different things. And so, I think Jordan McGee, as well as Frankie Luvu, I think that they're both going to have, strong impacts on this team. The way that I think they want to play, these guys are both going to be utilized super well. I mean, you talk about Van Ginkel and how he's all over the field and running around. These guys could be playing somewhat of that role. I feel like Luvu probably more feels like a Van Ginkel type of guy. I don't know how much he'll play specifically on the outside, especially if they go to a 3-4. I know they're going to be playing multiple fronts. But I do think that those two linebackers are going to have a strong impact on this team moving forward. So, look, I mean, there's a lot of players that we could have mentioned. Quan Martin was another guy that he talked about. There's going to be a lot of changes, man, because I think the number one best thing about this change is that both coordinators are going to be running something different. Right, it's not going to be the same thing we've seen. So that being said, there's guys who's flourished in those past seasons that are going to have to adjust, and there's guys that have been waiting for this change to maybe tie better to their skill set. So we're going to see who who does well. Let me know what you guys think. If there's a player on this team that you think is really going to benefit that maybe I didn't mention, I'm excited, man. I think that these coaches both. They look the part as of right now. But talk is cheap. We're gonna see how they actually perform when the light is on them and the pressure is on. But I'm excited to see some of these guys, and maybe just a rejuvenated energy and effort from these players. You know how it is when you get a new boss. Maybe that's the energy you need to get to bring the max effort, and maybe the connection will be better for them. So thank you guys for tuning in. We appreciate all the love and support, and we'll talk to you soon. Peace.